Milwaukee is the fact that it's the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors.
Does this guy know how to party or what?
You heard it here first.
You're listening to The Rundown Live with Kriston Harris and Micah T. The destroyer of fake news.
Our banks were given to us by the Knights Templars, the Masonic Lodge of Knights Templars in Europe. Our educational institutions, universities and colleges were given to us by the Masonic Order coming out of Rome. This is why the square martyr board is a Catholic symbol. And Jews, how many Jews know that when you wear a yarmulke, that's not Jewish, it's Roman? That's why the Pope wears a yarmulke. That's why the cardinals wear the yarmulke. It's a Roman symbol, it's not Jewish. The Jews were told to wear the yarmulke to show subjection to Rome. And they got so used to using it, it's a Jewish symbol. It's not Jewish, it's Roman. So many people willingly bend themselves to what their masters want from them. What your masters want is for you to be in compliance, for you to think what they have told you to.
Ask any real astrologer today and they will tell you that we're in the age of Aquarius, whose motto is I know, and we are no longer in the age of Pisces, whose motto is I believe. Therefore, religion is failing and spirituality is rising. That being said, you either know the stars or you don't. Now, many churchgoers today will say that the Bible condemns astrology, which it doesn't. If you are a truth seeker, then you should seek the truth and not depend on your pastor to read the Bible to you. The Bible says we condemn astrologers, not astrology. Common sense should now be considered rare sense because people don't think for themselves. And I mean that respectfully. So here are the basics. Jesus is the Son of God, who is the light of the world, also called the Lamb of God, who is resurrected every Easter. He is also born of a virgin in Bethlehem. Now, the word Bethlehem was also left untranslated in the Bible. It means the house of bread, and it's not a literal house. With a basic understanding of astrology, you will know that the sun indeed is born every spring when the sun is in the constellation Aries according to tropical astrology. When you look up at night, you will see the Virgin in the sky, which is the constellation Virgo because it's the exact opposite of Aries. Now you might think Libra is the opposite of Aries when Libra is tiny compared to Virgo. Virgo actually takes up 2 constellations. Virgo is called the house of bread, as there are 12 houses for the 12 constellations. That's why Jesus says, John 14:2, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Now as above, Jesus begins collecting his 12 apostles. And so below, these are the 12 posts that the sun passes through every single year since the beginning of time. Do not be listening to these astronauts from NASA. They are liars. We cannot go to the stars. That's like trying to land on a rainbow. You can only log the stars. Therefore, astrology is astrologging. Be an astrologer yourself and don't depend on anyone else's interpretation except your own. It doesn't cost anything to pay attention. So do your diligence and do as the Bible says, not as your pastor says. Now, obviously, those who know me will take that with a grain of salt. But again, be your own leader. Do not listen to me or anyone for that matter. After all, religion is science told improperly, and true science is religion told properly. Jesus is the sun, but he is also the chrism oil and the third eye. That's why he dies between 2 thieves on Skull Hill, aka Calvary or Golgotha. And he even dies at 33, which is the number of vertebrae in your spine because he is the stairway to heaven, which is your backbone. He is the Messiah, which is the Messiah region of your body. If you want to learn the secrets of the Bible, you must learn astrology. The word pastor contains the word aster, as in asterism, which is the stars. Hercules is not a zodiac, which is a sign that the sun passes through. It's an asterism, just like Orion's belt. Why is no one asking why there's star language in religious hierarchies? More importantly, why is there a deacon and a cardinal in the church? There are 3 deacons in each constellation and there are 4 cardinal signs, which means there are 4 opening signs that begin the 4 seasons. Aries is a cardinal sign which begins spring. Cancer is a cardinal sign which begins summer. Libra is a cardinal sign that begins fall. And Capricorn is also a cardinal sign which begins winter. This is what they should be teaching in school, but they don't. They want your mind disconnected from your soul so they can control you. This Hearth book is a philosopher's guide to the truth. And that's all I preach on here. I'm just trying to help you.
Beast, the horned ram. And if you watch my video of Abraham, the father-son ram of Aries, you'll know I explained in detail about Aiel, the ram. So Aiel is the strong leader, the chief, the high ram, thus the pillar or the doorway that leads the rest of the way. So the Hebrew lexicon is admitting that the God of the Bible is related to the horned beast, the horned ram. So El, the god, was originally worshipped as the bull god, and then it was worshipped as the ram. And this is exactly why in the Bible they were condemning the Israelites for still worshiping the bull, which
I sit on a council of 13 people that take orders only from the Rothschild Tribunal in London, which they claim they take their orders directly from Lucifer.
I was the manager of Zodiac Productions, which Zodiac Productions, its name's been changed since then. I'm not even sure what they call it now, but it's the largest music conglomerate in the world. It owns RCA Records, Columbia Records, Motown Records, owns almost all the concert booking agencies in the United States. And that's not even the name of the company that owns it. The name of the company that owns it is Brenner Enterprises, and Brenner Enterprises is owned by Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan's owned by Standard Oil, and Standard Oil's owned by the Lords of London. You can track it on back. You kind of get the idea after a while. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It's one of my jobs as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many of the people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I attained was a man named David Crosby. Crosby, Still, Nash & Young. I saw David the day before Christmas last year. Talked with him. I got him away from this witch that he had with him. He told her to go shopping. We were in West Hollywood, and I was witnessing around the people I knew. We went off in this store, and we started talking. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, now I'll have to explain some of this when I'm done, because you're not going to understand it all unless you know something about music. I said, do they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, do they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now, I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He said, come on, Lance, you know what the reason is. I said, please, David, I don't want to guess. Tell me what the main reason is. He says, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. I'll explain what that means in a minute. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He says, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music. I said, thank you. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on, and it's placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in. This is why a master's cut months in advance before it's released. On the full moon, it's taken in to a temple room about the size of this auditorium that is in every one of the major music companies, behind locked doors up in the executive offices. And it's placed on an altar sitting in the north of the room, and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards and a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master. As I tell many Christian parents, you can go home and count your kids' records, probably yours too, and count how many demons at least are there. If that's too hard for you to believe, I'm sorry. That's why they do it.
Reality is a simulation, and Jesus knew it, and he tried to warn us, but the church erased it. Sound crazy? Well, then ask yourself this. Have you ever wondered if everything that you see, everything you touch, could be an illusion? A hologram, a simulation, a cosmic deepfake? Well, Jesus already figured this out 2,000 years ago, and what's even wilder is that modern physics is proving him right. See, today, scientists are discovering that matter doesn't even exist, that everything is just structured information, a projection from a higher reality. But here's the crazy part. An ancient book called The Sophia of Jesus Christ revealed this secret almost 2,000 years ago, and the church was so terrified of what it said that they banned it. So if this world is an illusion, then who built it? And more importantly, how do you escape? And by the end of this video, you'll know. And once you do, you'll never see reality the same way again. The Sophia of Jesus Christ is a book that was likely written in the 1st or 2nd century CE, and the church was not happy. They tried to Control-Alt-Delete this info by banning it and persecuting anyone who had it. But luckily, it was discovered in 1945, buried near the tombs of Egypt. And in this book, Jesus appears not in the flesh, but as pure, blinding light. But who is the Sophia in the Sophia of Jesus Christ? Well, Sophia is the...
Because of this administration, we are tonight a world divided. We are a nation becalmed. We have lost the brisk pace of diversity and the genius of individual creativity. We are plodding along at a pace set by centralized planning, red tape, rules without responsibility, and regimentation without recourse.
Madam Speaker, I have a few questions for my colleagues. What if our foreign policy of the past century is deeply flawed and has not served our national security interests? What if we wake up one day and realize that the terrorist threat is a predictable consequence of our meddling in the affairs of others and has nothing to do with us being free and prosperous?
To be fair, we had helped to create the problem we're now fighting. How? Because when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan.
Promised of being one of the most effective treatments for AIDS and cancer in history. Now it's gone, and one of the most respected research facilities in the country is being blamed.
Participation in a process that validates an establishment that never meaningfully changes. What if that establishment doesn't want and doesn't have the consent of the governed? What if the two-party system was actually a mechanism used to limit so-called public opinion? What if there were more than two sides to every issue, but the two parties wanted to box you into a corner, one of their corners?
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of the Rundown Live, Kriston T. Harris.
Good morning. You're listening to the Rundown Live, therundownlive.com, your home for information you will not hear anywhere else. We're broadcasting live on groundzeroplus.com. Make sure you guys check out our homies over there at Ground Zero Plus, home to Clyde Lewis. They have a lot of great broadcasts that go on over there on Ground Zero. We also have some interesting stuff going on at fringeit.co. If you haven't checked out fringeit.co, it is the new social media platform for anyone that really wants to have these kinds of conversations. You can actually listen to this broadcast right on fringeit.co. TheRundownLive.com also has the player. But if you look on the screen right now, which you're broadcasting live on social media across the interwebs, including on Rumble.com and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, you can go to fringeit.co and hit the player, and the audio will play straight from your phone. Or you can download the app. The app is on air. Disclosure Talk Radio, available in the Google Play Store and the iTunes Store. And we have a great guest joining us today. We have Micah Dank. Micah Dank is an astrotheologist. He's done extensive research on the zodiac sign, numerology, amongst many other things, and how they impact our holy books, how they impact our beliefs. And we each take from what he researches, and we learn about these correlations that are in the book. As you guys saw coming into the show, it was a very interesting broadcast. We'll be talking about symbolism in the Bible, right? Zodiac signs in the Bible, not just the Bible, all holy books, which I'm going to be honest with you. Some people believe, the Bible is not really divinely put out there, that is written by a lot of men, and there's nothing of value in it, and it's a bunch of bogus. I'm telling you right now, I have different beliefs on that. And so I'm okay with inviting people on the show that don't share my beliefs, that don't believe as I do, because I am interested in the truth. People will always say, hey, Kriston, why is it that you have somebody like Eric Freeman, a former Satanist, on the show? Why are you having Freemasons on the show and former Illuminati like Leoline Zagami? Why is it that you're having all these individuals that are saying exotic and eccentric things? Because I just want to know the truth. I want to do the research. I want you guys to have the information so you can plant healthy seeds in the garden of your mind and grow healthy ideas. Getting that non-GMO cognitive dissonance, those logical fallacies out of your mind. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to bring different perspectives that you won't hear anywhere else. I'm going to get that little hamster running on the wheel. So if you don't tune in weekdays on groundzeroplus.com, you are missing out. So go to groundzeroplus.com, check it out, fringeit.co, check it out. If you don't know how to get there, therundownlive.com. Therundownlive.com. That should be your source for daily shows. And you can find us on social media, Rumble, and all that jazz. But I really wanted to talk about a bunch of different things before we have Micah Dank join us on the broadcast. And there's a lot that you guys need to know. But I wanted to, first of all, start off with a very interesting and fun announcement. I will be joining Coast to Coast AM. So set your alarms on your phones this Sunday at midnight. That's right. Midnight Central Standard Time. I believe that's 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to be getting into the deep cuts on the whole ideology of giant human skeletons. A lot of you people may or may not have interest of this, but it's going to be an interesting topic nonetheless. Richard Sirrett of Strange Planet will be hosting. It'll be a great broadcast for you guys to be a part of. So mark your calendars, tune in. If you got a radio, the odds are Coast to Coast AM broadcasts in your local community. And by the way, Micah Dank is a person who introduced me to Richard Sirrett, which is really interesting because he's the reason why we're doing Coast to Coast AM, which is very cool. I'm very blessed for that introduction as well. So all that has been going on. Very interesting deep dive. So I want to tell you a little bit about our guest today. Micah Dank is quite the background. He was born in the 80s. So I'm a 70s baby, 1983. I think that's when Transformers came out. Can somebody correct me if I'm wrong? Did Transformers come out in 1983? I think that was a pretty cool year. I think we had like Voltron and Challenge of the GoBots and a lot of cool things happened in 83. I can tell you what really happened that was cool in 82 is the Brewers went to the World Series. But 83 might not have been as good of a year. But he's out of New York, which, as you guys know, I have a close tie to Pine Bush, New York. You know, KGRA, our old syndication, is out of there. And I spoke at an event in Pine Bush about UFOs. I don't really do the UFO thing, but I had all these William Cooper documents. I gave a presentation on it. It was a hit. It was a great opportunity. But I should also know that from a young age, Micah Dank had wanted to be a writer. Coming from a family of writers. His father was a producer, radio news editor at CBS News and Manhattan. And his grandfather was a producer at CBS News as well. Micah was an actor in high school and became interested in writing from his 12th grade English teacher, Russell Reid. From there, he majored in English at SUNY Albany and transferred down to CUNY Hunter College of Manhattan to earn his bachelor's degree in language, literature, and criticism. It wasn't until he moved to Boston for a new job that he became interested in all the esoteric sciences, including astrology and astrotheology, prevalent through his book series. And he has a great book series, and you can find that on his website. His website, for all of you out there that don't know, is debunkmywork.com. Another interesting thing about Micah Dank here, 32nd degree Freemason. And it's funny because I was on the AM Wake Up Show this morning. I don't know how many of you guys in the chat tuned into the AM Wake Up Show today. I did this morning, and we were talking a little bit about how Freemason kind of seems like Zionism for the Goy. You know, the Goy slop out there. That's what they call the non-Jewish people. I couldn't say that like 4 years ago. They would ban you off the internet. Now everyone's saying it's on every TikTok. You know, it's interesting, you know, and a lot of us started to think about that. And he used to be a top Mason, 32nd degree. It's highest you can go unless you are brought up from the honorary degree, which is the 33rd degree. That's where you do the ritual of Noah and persecution, amongst other things, allegedly according to Manly P. Hall. And I think that was in his book, Understanding the Numerology in Your Bible, in Bible Numerology, which is a fantastic book. If you don't have Manly P. Hall's philosophical book on understanding your Bible. It's worth buying, especially if you come from a Protestant church background like I do. It helps you understand a lot of things that are in it, because a lot of us believe blindly, right? We go to church, we don't know what we believe, and if you have a debate, it's like, oh, let me bring you to church. You can ask my itty-bitty pastor, and he'll tell you what I believe. They don't know for themselves what they believe and why they believe it. I always believe that the biggest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians, because of the way they act, the way they behave, and the religious takeover that happened during the Bun Society, and even before that, the Council of Nicaea. And it seems like everyone that has their hands on the Bible perverts it. But at the same time, we were talking a lot about satanic Luciferianism and rituals, and how no matter what road I go down, whether it's atheism, agnosticism, whatever religion it is, it always comes back to the satanic Luciferianism. Now, not everyone believes satanic or Luciferianism is evil. Not everyone believes like the elitists do in these bizarre rituals that we're seeing in the Epstein files that you heard about from John Todd back in the 60s and 70s, that you heard from the last 2 weeks. I've had so many MK Ultra survivors on the broadcast. I've had 5. That's a lot. Like, MK Ultra took place in the 60s, 70s, and 80s up to 84, allegedly. Probably still going on right now. And we started learning that there is this, at least, ideology of SRA, satanic ritual abuse. And all the elite believe is astro-theology. What was it? J.P. Morgan, millionaires don't use astrologists, but billionaires do. There's something about it. And I'm not saying that it is evil. I'm saying it's information. In the Bible, they talk about the Maseroth. I find a lot in the Bible to be accurate and interesting. At the same time, I understand it as a scripture to develop complacency in the Christian religion, and for the people who are dumb enough to follow the global think tanks and march right into a new world order because it's prophesized in a book. If that were the case, we'd all be speaking German. I don't think that should be the case, and you should be complacent. I think you should challenge your faith. I think you need to digest all information to plant healthy seeds in the garden of your mind so you can grow healthy ideas. And sometimes that means looking at places and spots where you don't understand or you don't believe or you're not sure about. That's what Friday was about when we were talking about the reverse hypnosis with the individual that helped MK Ultra patients and also cast out demons, because he's like, oh, demons and aliens exist. People believe a lot of interesting things, and I like to know why it is that they believe what they do. I like to check it and understand. And as Micah T came on our program and had 2 very successful shows, thousands of views on Rumble, right? I think one of them got 2,500. Other one, his follow-up video had 2,000 views. People are interested in the subject. It's like the human meat subject. I was on AM Wake Up this morning with Steve and the guy from Las Vagabond, and I mentioned, oh, McDonald's, I don't know, it's a weird conspiracy about not having enough meat, and they got human meat at McDonald's. People love this stuff. They're eating it up. It's like clones of Jim Carrey. And every other click on TikTok and Reels, that's what people want to hear. So that's the way the AI algorithms are directed, because that's where the money is at. So what is real? What is programming? What is MK Ultra programming? Who's all being programmed, and what is it that the elite believe? And I can tell you that there's a reason that smart people believe this, because there's probably truth to it. The zodiac signs, is there science and math behind it? Sure. But at the same time, you have these occultists like Epstein that say, and he's a mathematician, right? And he's hanging out with Rothschilds, Illuminati. And he's saying, oh, hey, science and math is outdated. How do you explain, when you walk into a room and you get a creepy feeling about somebody? How is it that you knew that person was predatory by them just walking in the room? Or you think it's somebody they call? Like, there's just stuff that science can't explain, like just coincidences. And I'm like, okay, he's sounding a little bit rational as Steve Bannon, but at the same time, this guy's a monster with a capital M. Like, I mean, evil monster. So I think it's important for us to understand, to dive into this, and we need to challenge our faith. We need to understand that there's more than one explanation for all of this. I agree, and I allow Micah T to share his opinion because I value it. I value the fact that he may not believe as I do. In fact, most of the people on my show don't agree with me. on some things. I mean, I don't even agree with my mom half the time. I got Trump mom. I love her to death. And I go over there and I hang out with her and we talked, but just because I don't agree with her entirely doesn't mean that we don't have a conversation. So this broadcast isn't there for confirmation bias. This broadcast is here for you to learn and become educated on what is going on with our holy books. So that being said, I want to bring on brother Micah Dank, who's been a wonderful person to me. He's invited me onto a broadcast on the spring equinox to talk about my mentor, partially Jordan Maxwell, aka Russell Pine, who was a student of Manly P. Hall personally, who left him 150 hand-signed books. And when I met Jordan, I tell the story all the time. He asked me, well, why did Manly P. Hall leave me these books? And it seemed like a question he asked a lot of people. And he wanted to get an answer. He's searching for an answer to the question he's asking is that question. And I always said, Jordan, you have a way of making this incredibly difficult knowledge easy for a dumb person like me to understand. And I think that's the truth. Welcome to the broadcast. Micah Dank, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited for today's broadcast. I know we were trying to link up a week or two ago, but here we are today. What is it that you got for us? What are we all diving into? I know we're going to dive into numerology and astrotheology and the Bible, and I'm kind of excited for our viewers and listeners to really hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm just going to share some information you don't know, and forgive me, this particular presentation is not as linear as the other one is. It's a little all over the place because I'm still trying to figure out where certain things go. So it's going to jump around a little bit.
That's
but
fine,
basically,
brother.
It's just going to be a lot of really good information out there. So I think I'm sharing.
Okay, if you are sharing your screen, I can put it on. Let's see what we got here. Micah, there we go. We got you with your shared screen. Thanks for giving me the heads up there. Feel free to share your screen, and we'll put that on the screen right now. And Micah, so for our listeners that don't know, how did you get involved in astrotheology? How did your journey go down this rabbit hole?
I found some of Jordan's videos and Jordan Maxwell's videos, and I realized that this is what I wanted to do with my time in my life, because I wanted to share this and teach this to other people. And then I started studying it myself, and I started breaking things down on my own, and I found out that it goes way deeper than just the Bible. It's every ancient holy text.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that there was an intent or a reason, or every religion is a copy of itself?
I think it was to keep a record of what stars are where of the heavens, to map out the heavens, and to keep it encoded so only people who knew what they were looking for could figure it out.
And that's why it was important for people to read the heavens and hire an astrologist or an astronomer back in the day, because they could read the stars and let them know when to plant, when not to plant, maybe give advice based on where the stars are. And like for example, you mentioned to me Ides of March, right? And a lot of people don't know Ides of March, that is when Julius Caesar was murdered. So a lot of people equate March 15th to a time of assassination, a time of deceit, a time of betrayal, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So when
got Friday the 13th, too. That's when the Knights Templar were destroyed by the Catholic Church, when they were burnt alive. Jacques de Molay. October 13th, 1307, Friday the 13th. And to this day, 13 is an unlucky number.
Yeah, and why? And that's mostly because of the Knights Templar. Otherwise, 13 is a very esoteric number. Normally represents rebirth and reborn. There's 12 months in a year. And the 13th, there's a new year, right? So historically, 13 is not a toxic or bad number. But ever since the Knights Templar and the Gnostics were burnt at the stake, and many of them, left. Obviously, that's where we get the pirates. And some say that Knights Templar helped William Wallace win in Scotland. Right? That they went many other places and that they knew it was coming. But at the end of the day, it has held this like horror movie aspect, Michael Myers, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of interesting to see how some of these old traditions carry on or evolve. And so now Friday the 13th is always horror movie binge night.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's dive
So
into
I'm gonna,
this.
yeah, let's start with this. So the first slide says Lascaux Caves 40,000 years ago, and then here is an article right here that says the Lascaux, and then here's an article 40.
Okay, we're losing Micah Dank here. I don't know, Micah, you have weak connection and you keep cutting out. I don't know if you can restart your computer and rejoin us, but it seems like you keep cutting out. Your
Years
imagery
ago or
keeps
so.
cutting out here.
Or maybe it wasn't even that long ago, but basically they went in there, and when they explored the back of the cave, this is just an example. This is two different pictures that you're seeing right here. But basically you see the bull right here, you see the horse right here, and you see the many faces of the lions right here. And then people were quick to figure out, oh my God, the bull is Taurus, the horse is Sagittarius, the lion is Leo. These scientists, who what they did was they peeled off some of the layer of this and this, and what they did was they carbon dated it. And I know for a fact that a lot of Christians will sit there and say carbon dating is inaccurate. And for that, I will say they are correct when they say carbon dating is inaccurate. However, carbon dating has been shown to be pretty accurate up to 50,000 years. When you start to get into the millions of years, it's a joke. It's just a guess at that point, because you're dealing with a half-life, you're dealing with decay. But when they carbon dated these pictures, it came out to about 17,000 years. So what they then did was they called in an astrologer with a computer, because we had the technology to do this now. And what they did was they rewound the sky back from where they were located in Lascaux, France, 17,000 years to see what the sky looked like. Then what they did was they printed all that out, and lo and behold, when they put it up against the wall, all the constellations lined up to where the constellations were 17,000 years ago. The other thing that happened, too, is that on June 21st, the summer solstice, and only on June 21st, the summer solstice, the sun would actually come into the back of the cave and illuminate this. Only on that one day. So you're talking about a man-made cave. You're
So
talking about
a sacred
complex
ritual, right?
astrology for 17,000 years. Now, for my work and for my... Yeah? Right. Now, for my work and for what I do, I don't have to prove that we knew astrology 4,000 years ago. I don't even need to prove that we've known astrology for 17,000 years. The only thing I need to prove is that we've understood astrology longer than the Bible says we have been around. That's it. Now, I don't know if you know who Jason of Archaics is.
I do not. Who is he?
I went on his show. He's a pretty big channel, but he's read a lot of books, and we got into a huge fight because he says that there is no proof that we knew the zodiac before 713 BC. And right here, the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, 1894 BC. He, Marduk, constructed stations for the great gods, fixing their astral likenesses as the stars of the zodiac. He determined the year, and into sections he divided it. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months. So we knew that. Now, when I start to talk, again, this is a little all over the place. This is just really good information that I want to get out there that I'm still trying to figure out.
For our listeners that might not know, isn't he a Sumerian deity?
Correct. Well, the Enuma Elish is Babylonian, but Marduk was the... yeah, no, you're correct. You're correct. So
Who's also a
I
Babylonian
want
god.
to
I know
address
that.
right. I want to address the King James Bible because the King James Bible is supposed to be the absolute be all end all perfect translation. It's what all the Christians use. They use it across the sphere. However, it is widely inaccurate, and I'm going to share some information about it. So let's talk about the King James Bible. King James, who many of you out there didn't know, was gay. He was a homosexual and he was a demonologist first. This right here that you're looking at is a screenshot of his book that you can buy on Amazon to this day. Forgotten Books down here. It sells it. King James the First, Demonology by King James First. He came out with this before the King James Bible came out. So you have to... He commissioned William Tyndale to translate it to English. And if you look at what Thomas More tried to do down the road, you have to ask yourself, why does the Supreme Court of the United States come back in session? Do they hold a mass to venerate St. Thomas More, who's the patron saint of lawyers? Thomas More is the one that wanted to make the Bible in English go bye-bye. And he tried really hard to do that.
I wonder
now,
why.
The patent for the King James Version, because that's what they used to do. It used to be in Latin. It used to be chained to the pews because they would hand out the interpretations. Priests
Control the
clergy
knowledge.
would. They would hand out little pieces of paper. Correct. Exactly. It was a big deal when William Tyndale. And William Tyndale was burnt at the stake. And his last words were, "Lord, open their eyes." I mean, this is verifiable. Now, the patent for the King James Version, I don't know if you know this, but every time someone buys a King James Version on Amazon or somewhere else, the King James Version is patented. And it's also been tampered with. I'll give you an example. William Shakespeare was born in 1564. In 1611, he was 46 years old. 1611 is when the King James Version came out. So he was 46 in 1611. Psalm 46, the 46th word from the top is shake, and the 46th word from the bottom is spear. And you can actually open up Psalm 46 and verify this for yourself.
That's amazing.
And it's not just that.
That's crazy, bro. That's
right?
that's wild.
It has been edited. It absolutely has been edited. This is verifiable. Now, from the Hebrew to the English translation, it might not always say the word spear. It depends on the translation that you use. Do not use the King James Version. Because, well, not the King James Version. I'm sorry. Don't use any of the Middle Age versions, which I'm not going to get into right now. But basically, yeah, this is verifiable information. And it's not just that. Thou shalt not kill is one of the 10 commandments. Specifically, the 6th commandment in the Protestant tradition and the 5th commandment in the Catholic tradition. I'm going to read that again. Thou shalt not kill is one of the 10 commandments. Specifically, the 6th in the Protestant tradition and the 5th in the Catholic tradition. Now, in Hebrew, the 5th commandment is honor thy father and thy mother. So you have 3 different groups of people, the Jews, the Catholics, and the Protestants, who can't even argue, who can't even come up with what the commandments are supposed to be in order with. Now, the original Hebrew phrasing is debated. Some translations favor, you shall not murder. This distinction is important because the Hebrew word is ratzach, which is used in the commandment, typically refers to the unlawful taking of a human life, rather than all forms of killing. So in the King James Version, where it says thou shalt not kill, that's not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew says thou shalt not murder. You can kill a chicken. You can kill an animal. You can't murder something that's not a human. So the King James Version is inaccurate. There's plenty of other examples too, but it is the most widely used one, and it is supposed to be the errant word of God. Now, in every other Bible, Mazaroth means zodiac, and it's plural, not the single Mazaroth and Arcturus, as the King James Version says. Because they mention Arcturus, which is the guardian of the Great Bear, In the King James Version, Job 38:32, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? Well, in the King James Version, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth and Arcturus? That's the only version that is included in. So it's just another example of how it has been edited and changed amongst time. Now, it's important to note, too, that the Jews did not invent monotheism. I don't care what the Abrahamics tell you. Abraham did not invent monotheism. It was not invented by Abraham. It was invented in Egypt. In the year 1367 BC, well before Moses, Akhenaten established monotheism under a sun god in Egypt. He told everybody there was one God, and it's showing itself on earth as the sun, which, hello, that's basically Christianity too. But Abraham, as the story goes, started the one true God belief, but that's not true at all. In fact, during this time period, there have been found to be plenty of fertility gods and goddesses dug up in current times Israel that the Jews have made. In fact, Moses is a character who's based on two Egyptians. He's based off Akhenaten, which you'll find little argument there for people.
That they might be the same person.
And here's where people will argue. The name Moses comes from Tuthmoses. Moses to Akhenaten, absolutely, yeah. See, the idea, Moses supposedly wrote the Pentateuch, and the Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, by the way. So that's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Moses supposedly wrote all of that. However, Akhenaten supposedly Moses, who may be religious or who may be looking to get out of the religious section, but you still think that the Bible has a lot of good information in it. So this is what you have to understand. This Gnosticism is about purifying the evil which you'll find in the Bible. Basically, if I had to basically give a really, really rough breakdown of what it would be, I would say something like that. It's recognizing the following: that Yahweh was originally a Phoenician Canaanite god. You know who else was a Phoenician Canaanite god? Baal. And Moloch. And Moloch. Yahweh was just another one of them. The Jews are henotheistic, which Jordan Maxwell used to talk about. Henotheistic, not monotheistic. Henotheistic means they chose one god out of many. And as we just learned, that monotheism was created by Akhenaten in 1367. Also, that's why 3 of the 10 commandments, God is a jealous God. Have no other gods before me. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Right? Genesis 6:7. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. Isaiah 45:7. I form light and create darkness. I make well-being and create calamity. Or, in other translations, I make good and create evil. I am the Lord who does all these things. So God commands Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Incidentally, this is the I can't stress enough. With everything going on in the world right now with the war and everything, Abraham sacrificing Isaac is the very beginning of the conflict, between the Arabs and the Jews. See, what happened in the Bible was Abraham had a wife named Sarah who was barren. So Sarah told Abraham, go knock up your maidservant. They had a son named Ishmael. God then unbarrens Sarah somehow at 90 years old, and they have a son named Isaac. Now, the Muslims claim that it was Ishmael that was to be sacrificed by Abraham, and the Jews claim that it was Isaac who was to be sacrificed. That's the beginning of their claim. That's Ishmael, basically the father of all the Muslims. Isaac, the beginning of all that too, for the Jews. Now, the Jews claim that it was Isaac to be sacrificed. Aside from this, God demanded a blood sacrifice, but stops it at the end. Through Abraham's faith, God allows the sacrifice to be transferred to animals. And what are the animals that they sacrifice, Christian? Rams, bulls, goats.
Zodiac signs.
Aries, Taurus, and Capricorn, exactly. Now, aside from that, in Genesis 8:21, and the Lord was pleased with the aroma of the sacrifice from Noah. So basically, they kill this animal, and they're burning it, and the smell is wafting to the ceiling, and the Lord smells it, and he is pleased. So this is where the Gnostic idea of the demiurge comes into play, that this wasn't the one true God, but a lesser God, one who had a bloodlust, sacrifices and all the blood spilled. And it's not just, I mean, listen to all the examples of blood worship that happens. The perfect red heifer that needs to be sacrificed upon which the third temple can be built, and all the animal sacrifice made by the Jews in the Bible. The Catholics have their transubstantiation, that they are literally eating the body and drinking the blood of Christ. The blood of St. Januarius refers to a vial of what is believed to be the blood of the martyred bishop St. Januarius, preserved in the Naples Cathedral. A recurring event known as the miracle of liquefaction involves this dried blood miraculously turning to liquid on specific occasions during the year. Then you also have the Christians who constantly say that they are covered in blood of Jesus, or saved by the blood, or the precious blood. It's all blood worship. They are all demonic blood rituals. People have no idea what they're saying when they read that. It's all blood worship. This right here, let me see if I can highlight it a little bit better. This is the little container. It's vacuum sealed shut, that the blood of St. Januarius is in. And you can see the blood in there. Now, traditionally, the liquefaction happens 3 times a year. On the first Saturday before the first Sunday in May, commemorating the transfer of his remains to Naples, on September 19th, which is his feast day, and on December 16th in Thanksgiving for averting the 1631 eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Now, this is really important, Christian, because it's important to know that on these 3 particular days when they parade this little vial out in this little container, failure to liquefy is an extraordinarily bad omen for the Catholics. If it doesn't liquefy, so again, it's blood worship. Now I'm going to go away from the blood worship real quick.
Well, communion, right? Communion. We drink the blood of Christ. It's cannibalism, kind of. It's an old pagan Babylonian religion, like tradition, cannibalism. And so then you drink the blood of Christ, and then you eat his body, yum, 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 with some bread. I mean, it's all throughout the Vatican religion, and the traditions are there, obviously.
But that's what transubstantiation is. Transubstantiation is literally the conversion of the wine and the wafer to actually be ingesting. People are actually ingesting the body and the blood. It's blood worship. This is all blood worship. When you say to someone, I am covered by the blood, do you understand how demonic that sounds to anyone? But let's talk about this real quick. Jesus disappears at 12. And he comes back at 30, and no one can figure out why. But if you understand Judaism and you understand the ancient Saturnalia worship that they came from, you'll make complete sense of this. So Jesus disappears at 12 and comes back at 30. This has been a subject of great debate, but the answer is quite simple. What happens to a young Jewish boy at the age of 12? He becomes bar mitzvahed. He becomes a man. So I've had Jews come back to me and say, actually, the bar mitzvah is on the 13th year. Correct. The bar mitzvah is on the 13th year. But guess what? When you have a story about a man that is born on December 25th, and I'm not even going to get into when his real birthday is, because people have told me it's 9/11. That's why they did 9/11, the Feast of the Tabernacles.
We don't know. Nobody knows. That's why they call it Xmas.
Nobody knows, but astro-theologically, and it's interpreted through the stories, just like all the other gods that we can show, are born on December 25th. Now, the Jewish bar mitzvahs usually happen in the spring and the summer, because it's the same thing with the Catholics. They have all their little rituals, confirmation, communion. That's always in like May or something, I believe, right? So how old are you in the 13th year in the spring if your birthday is not until December 25th?
Well, you're still technically 12, right?
Exactly. So he becomes bar mitzvah, he becomes a man. So Jesus becomes a man and leaves to study. He starts his ministry at 30. But why? The ancient Jewish religion has roots in Saturnalia worship before it. It's why their day of rest is the Saturday or the Saturn day. So why 30? It's because if you do any research into this, you'll find that Saturnalia worshippers always said that you were not allowed to become a teacher until you had your Saturn return, is what it's called. Until Saturn came back to the point it was at when you were born. It just so happens that Saturn takes 30 years to come back. That's why he disappears at 12 with his bar mitzvah, and he comes back as 30 at 30 when the Jews were allowed to become teachers at that point. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. Have you seen this picture before? Nicolas Cage knowing? I mean, you've seen it in a bunch of places, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to add something real quick to this, if you don't mind. Jordan Maxwell, in his book, That Old Time Religion, also explains that at 30, and I don't know, I might be getting a little bit ahead of the presentation here, and I hope that there's no spoilers, but that the sun actually enters each zodiac sign at the 30th degree and exits at the 33rd degree. Thus, it's said that no Freemason can rise higher than God's sun, and that's why there's only 33 degrees in Freemasonry, and that the sun travels through all 12 zodiac signs, starting at the 30th degree and exits at the 33rd degree. Thus, it said Christ or Jesus starts his ministry at 30 and dies at 33. And if you're a religious person, you might believe that he was deified as this astrotheological tradition and observation, much like the Nimrod and the fertility ritual of the obelisk. But it's very interesting because now that explains 12 to 30. Yeah.
Each zodiac sign is 30 degrees. So the 33rd degree would be the third sign in the following degree, which is still part of what is known as the cusp or the handover dates. The energies are still there. It's the furthest that a degree could possibly be. So basically, the cusps are the first 3 days, the last 3 days of one sign and the first 3 days of the next sign over. So those are basically, they're known as cusps, the energies blend. So at the 33rd degree, because at the 34th degree, you no longer have the original energy from the first 30. So that makes complete sense, number one. Absolutely. So if you look at this picture right here, this is Ezekiel.
Cherubim and
seeing
angels.
the vision of God. Right. Well, if you look at this right here, God is in the sun. Why is God in the sun? Because God was the sun. And that's what they all knew. This right here, if you were to go to the internet, you can look up something called the Oraphim. These are angels. This is what they look like. This is what they show. Now here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, okay?
Ah, I see it.
I don't know if you can really see this clearly.
I get it already. I see where you're going with all
lion. This is a bull. This is a lion. This is a bull. This is an eagle. This is a man. This is the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac.
What's a fixed sign of the zodiac for listeners that might not know?
Well, you have 12 zodiac signs. I am right now. You have 12 zodiac signs, and you have 4 seasons in the year. So each season has 3 zodiac signs. That's why you have cardinals in church. Also, if you were to take any of those 12 zodiac signs and talk to an astrologer, they do the readings. They break them down into 3 10-day segments. The 30 degrees of a zodiac sign is broken down into 3 10-day segments. The word for that is deacon, which is why you have deacons and cardinals in church.
Huh.
The second sign out of 3 is the fixed sign because it's in between the first and the third. It's in the middle of the season. So if I were to show you this, the lion right here, this is summer. The man is winter. The bull is spring. And the eagle, which is the evolution of the scorpion. I'll explain that real quick too. The scorpion is the lowest form of life on earth. It crawls on its belly. It's considered a punishment. In fact, in the Garden of Eden, the first thing that God does is not kick Adam and Eve out after the deception. He doesn't do that right away. The very first thing he does, is he takes the legs away from the snake and makes him slither on his belly. Now, why would he do that? Because it's a form of punishment. In Peru, during Santa Muerte, they get dressed up in suits and ties, and the men crawl on their belly to church. It's a punishment. It's a humbling thing. However, the eagle is the evolution of Scorpio, and the eagle is the highest flying form of life on Earth. And then the eagle will evolve again, and it'll become the phoenix. And what is the story of the phoenix?
We're rising from the ashes.
The story of the phoenix is the story of Christ, is the story of the sun. It's a flaming ball of life that dies specifically for 3 days, and then it comes back from its ashes. So that's basically, and this is Ezekiel visiting it. And also remember, Ezekiel, the passage is, let me see if I can find it real quick. Ezekiel's inaugural vision. In the 4th month of the 5th day, when I was among the exiles of the Kebar River, the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God. That's interesting, right? In his 30th year. We literally were just talking about Jesus in the 30th year. What happens at 30? You get to become a teacher. So this is the 4 fixed signs. This is the Oraphim, and this is God in heaven as the sun. Now, we know the biblical flood never occurred the way it says in the Bible because there were great civilizations thriving during that time. They kept good records and neglected to mention they were all wiped from the face of the earth. You have the Chinese Neolithic dynasty, the Egyptians dynasties 4, 5, and 6, the Mesopotamians early dynastic period, the Sumerians early dynastic 3A and 3B, the Peruvians Norte Chico civilizations, and more. We find a continuous line of culture, construction, art, and historical records that runs through the time those flood was supposed to actually happen. So when people say that article that just came out in the news, that at one time the top of Mount Everest has fossils of sea creatures, well, the flood was real, and that means the Bible is real. No, just because the Bible talks of a flood, and there was a flood that happened, because all the civilizations have a flood story, doesn't mean that the Bible actually told it how it was. Now, in Numbers, to pivot a little, 21:4-9, the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many of the people died of Israel. So the people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned because we have spoken against the Lord and you. Intercede with the Lord that he may remove the serpents from us." And Moses interceded for the people. Then here we go. This is where it's important right here. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Make a fiery serpent and set it on a standard," or a staff. That's what they're trying to say. "And it shall come about that everyone who is bitten when he looks at it will live." So the Bible thinks that it's the first place that has a serpent on a staff. The Greeks had the rod of Asclepius. In medicine, you have the caduceus. And it goes back to Kundalini yoga right here. This is original right here.
Or Kabbalism.
This is a serpent-like pattern. Yeah. So the Egyptians kept pristine, meticulous records about their history, even the things that were unflattering or painted them in a bad light. There is zero evidence in the Egyptian records of Exodus happening, of Moses, of the plagues, or of the Red Sea parting. Also, I find it interesting, too, that in the Old Testament, it's the Jews actually really did come from Egypt, which Anwar Sadat told Menachem Begin that there was no evidence of in the peace accords in 77. There is zero mention in the Bible of the pyramids or the Sphinx. You would think that those big monoliths would get some form of
some kind of mention, right?
Or examples of, yeah, right? Something, you would think.
Well, they try to justify
it. The other interesting
thing
too about the Old Testament is you know that...
They try to justify it as saying that the Israelis were slaves, which they weren't because they had money and weapons, right? If that were so the case, and that they were building the pyramids, but there's no evidence of that. There's a couple of different things I want to unpack real quickly here with you. I agree that like the flood narrative, it's all throughout the world. don't think that the Bible timeline is accurate. I can guarantee you that's probably a part of the case. I think that 12,000 years ago there was a flood because that's what we learned with the Egyptian. You know, there's water erosion at the Sphinx from 12,000 years ago. There's water erosion at the pyramids from 12,000 years ago. A lot of that, they said the Nile was further up and closer and touching the pyramids. We don't really know. But I think
it's interesting.
Interesting.
It's interesting too because the Sphinx, 12,000 years ago, the Sphinx, which was a lion, would have been facing the constellation Leo. Now it's facing Aquarius because it's been half of the great year. But it would have been facing Leo 12,000 years ago.
What are your thoughts about things like them finding a bunch of chariots at the bottom of, the Red Sea? Do you think that's, just something that's coincidence? Maybe at one point it was very narrow and people left a bunch of chariots, stuff like that. There's like, because
anything is really possible, but that's like Ron Wyatt bullshit, basically.
No, it's interesting data, at least I would think, but yeah, I guess
it is interesting to look into, absolutely. But just like Ron Wyatt went to this secluded area in Israel and pulled out these pure sulfur balls. So it was raining hellfire and brimstone.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, supposedly. It's amazing. This guy just keeps finding.
No, we don't know. But again, like I mentioned, like people have confirmation bias, right? And it's really interesting because I love looking and listening into what you have. I've been doing a lot of research, and you've inspired me to look a lot into this. And I also am taking a look at the opposing facts. And the truth is, we don't know unless we have a time machine, right? To really know exactly what happened. But I agree with you. Another thing I want to bring to people's attention: I found out that Moses is a title and an anagram. Moses is the word son, as in sun in the sky, and Moses was a title. The odds are that person's name wasn't Moses at all, and I think that's why a lot of people led to believe that the Egyptian pharaoh that parted ways was Moses. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. And again, it's confirmation bias. So it's interesting data, and I find it very important data, what you are sharing, and it makes a lot of sense in many shapes and forms here, Micah. So keep going. I just wanted to bring some other viewpoints for a lot of our listeners, and I have some questions, and I think it's good that we have these conversations. I'm not much for debating, right? I like to hear your data, and then I like to give feedback and see what your thoughts are because I want to improve my theory because my soul is important to me. You have a soul. I have a soul. What is the meaning to life, the universe, and everything? And it's not 42 like it says in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that's what we're here to find out. And you have so many puzzle pieces that just fit. And that doesn't mean it's a coincidence. That means it strategically has been put in these books. And I find it very interesting. So let's keep going here.
Thank you. So we were talking before about Jesus being born on December 25th. You guys also saw the movie or the section in Zeitgeist where they were talking about astrotheology. That was a very watered down beginning level. I'm going to give you something a little deeper than that. Simply and always has been described the path of the sun over the ecliptic as the sun dances its way around the 12 zodiacs. You have Mithra, who was born on December 25th, the Immaculate Conception. He is the sun god and Messiah. 12 disciples, accepted sins, was killed and resurrected, becoming God incarnate. Cult includes communion and baptism. That's Mithra. Adonis, born December 25th also, Greek god of fertility, a.k.a. Babylonian Tammuz, a.k.a. Syrian savior. He was killed and buried, resurrected 3 days later. Dionysus, born on December 25th as a result of the Immaculate Conception, Greek god of winemaking, a.k.a. Bacchus, a.k.a. savior and liberator of mankind, naturally with communion. Osiris, born in late December to a virgin, Egyptian sun and underwater god, a.k.a. judge of the dead, a.k.a. one of the Egyptian Trinity. Ruled over 12 kings, betrayed, killed, buried, risen after 3 days. Horus, born December 25th to Isis as a result of Immaculate Conception from the spirit of Osiris. God of the sun and light, one of the Egyptian Trinity, embodied the resurrection. December 25th is the day of the resurrection of the sun. The reason these gods are dead for 3 days and they're always born again or come back to life on December 25th is simply because of this. On December 25th, the sun is going to rise a degree on its axis. So it's the first day that it's going to start to make its way back to the northern hemisphere for summer, basically, is what you're looking at. On December 26th, it's going to rise an additional degree. And then each additional day, it's going to rise an additional 1 degree. The days are getting longer, the nights are getting shorter, it's getting a little bit warmer. When it hits June 21st, that is the summer solstice. That is the longest day of the year, the shortest night of the year. That is when the sun is at its height. Then what's going to happen on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th is for 3 consecutive days, it's not going to rise an additional degree or drop a degree. It's going to stay at that exact same degree as it came up on the 21st. Just like it's walking sideways in the sky, which is why this happens in Cancer, which is the crab. Why is Cancer the crab? Because the crab is the sideways walking creature. And that's what the sun does. Then what it's going to do is on June 25th, it's going to drop a degree. Then on June 26th, it's going to drop a degree. So now the nights are getting longer and the days are getting shorter, and it's going to go back to winter in the Northern Hemisphere. When it hits December 21st, after dropping a degree a day every single day, it's going to hit December 21st, and that's the lowest the sun is going to be. That's the shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year. The ancients, in the mornings, would look out on December 21st. They noticed the sun wouldn't even crack the horizon. So they metaphorically used to say that the sun was dead. And then just like it walks sideways for 3 days like the crab, it's going to walk sideways for 3 days here. So now God's son was dead for 3 days. Where then on December 25th, the light of the world, the risen Savior, the only begotten Son, is born again. It comes back to life and it starts to make its way. And it does this every single year.
Well, that's the term horizon, right? Horus is risen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why we go by 12-hour cycle. And hours is an anagram for Horus. Horus and his 12 followers. We don't go by 24-hour cycle. We go by 12-hour cycle because it's Horus and his 12 followers. Hours is an anagram for Horus. Also, I want to mention that as a person who grew up in a Protestant Assemblies of God church, we learned that Christ died on a Friday and rose again on a Sunday. That's 2 days. Like, that was the 3 days he was dead. Like, so we got questions here, Micah. We got lots of questions.
He died on a Friday, that's 1 day. The first day he's dead. Saturday's the second day. Sunday's the third day that he rose.
Yeah, but from between Friday and his death and Sunday his resurrection is only 48 hours. But I can see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, when do you celebrate Easter, too? Easter's the resurrection, isn't it?
Yeah,
well,
allegedly Easter's the resurrection, yeah.
To figure out when Easter is every year, because it changes every year, you need to know astrology. Because the way you figure out when Easter is every year to celebrate Jesus' resurrection is it's the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. And that's how you figure out when Easter is every single year, because it changes every year. But the formula doesn't. Now, in Chapter 125, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Declaration of the Innocents before the gods of the tribunal, in case you thought that the Ten Commandments were original, this is chapter 125 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. O swallower of shades who came forth from Kernet, I have not slain people. That becomes, thou shalt not kill. O doubly evil one who came forth from the Brucerite gnome, I have not had intercourse with a married woman. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife. O he who prospered the common people who came forth from Asiod, I have not cursed a god. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. 3 of the 10 commandments are mentioned right here in the open. The rest can be found in the 42 positive affirmations of Mott.
Do these go back further to Sumerian, to like the old Sumerian texts? And I
haven't found that. I found it in Egyptians, to be honest. But it could be. I'm not going to say definite. No, I'm just proving. Look, I wasn't just proving that. I'm not trying to prove that the Egyptians is where this.
No,
started,
I understand. I was just curious.
The Ark of the Covenant does not exist. It never did exist. However, there is an Egyptian Ark of the Contract, which does exist, which had this. Does it go back even further? I don't know. I just wanted to prove that it's not original to the Bible.
Are you familiar with Timothy Hogan's claims? Obviously, he's a Knights Templar, claiming that there was like I think he said over 30 arcs, and that the Knights Templars have accrued at least 6 arcs, and they believed it was something that created electricity, helped create electricity with the pyramids, and that's why people would die when they touch it, because they had a natural electricity about it. And that's currently the Knight Templars claims. You can go on Gaia TV.
I think
watch it.
Timothy Hogan is a shill and a dangerous person.
Okay, I don't disagree with you, from what I've seen and heard, but I think it's interesting because it's basically everything William Cooper warned about in his Mystery Babylon series. And I don't know how familiar you are with William Cooper, but he's one of the people
that was
really
a little
got me
bit
into this.
before me, but William Cooper was a little before me, but I do have a pale horse somewhere in my car.
Yeah, and it's an interesting book. It's the same thing with William Donahue, right? I learned a lot of this from William Donahue as well, who's another interesting individual.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Jesus raising Lazarus. That's not original either. That's Egyptian.
Well, isn't Lazarus another name for Osiris?
I'm showing you right now.
Oh.
El-Azarus Osiris, who Horus raised from the dead. The Greek name Lazaros equals Eliezer in Hebrew and means whom God helps. It is a strange coincidence, firstly, that the person whom Jesus resurrects happens to be named whom God helps. And secondly, that Eliezer, or breaking down its original components in Hebrew, Elazar, closely resembles a combination of the Semitic word for God, El, with the Egyptian name for Osiris, Osir. So El-Azarus, if you break it down into syllables, you see the Egyptian part of it. You just say Lazarus, you get the story about some dude that died. There's also something called the Lazarus effect. I don't know if you know this, but if you can see me right now, if you see me on screen right now, it's when a dead body will just be sitting there and it'll go like this. I don't know if you've ever seen this or heard of this before, but it basically crosses its hands and it sits up. That's known as the Lazarus effect.
And that's when
And
dead
it happens
bodies do
sometimes
this.
because the muscles are still out. That's what?
That's interesting. Like to observe that, like that's when dead people, they sit up like that after 3 days, the Lazarus effect. And that's, I guess we don't see it that much because we bury our dead, right? So it's not something we see commonly anymore. But I never heard of that. That's a very interesting subject.
I think they do see it in morgues, and they do see it in morgues. But it's a very real thing. No, it's a very real thing. Doesn't mean they're alive. They just sit up like that. So, how I know that there is a God, an actual God, a creator above all, not the God of the Bible. It's because the sun tells the hour of the day, the moon tells the day of the month, and the zodiac tells the month of the year. I don't care if you're in a flat earth with a dome over it, with waters above. I don't care if you believe in a round earth and that we're in a little section of the Milky Way galaxy in the middle of nowhere, No matter what you believe, there is a perfect calendar and clock system that was created that works for our planet. And to me, that's a creator right there. Now, I want to show this real quick. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but this is basically, the turtle was revered back in the ancient days. I don't know if you guys know why, but basically, if you count this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So there's 13 right
13
there.
scales on the shell.
Count what I'm highlighting. If you count what I'm highlighting in pink right here, there's 28. So this was a calendar too. 13 at 28, that's a woman's cycle. That's 364 days plus the day of rest. So the turtle used to be used as a calendar as well.
So a bunch of women walking around with a bunch of turtles back in the day to figure out when they're going to bleed. They're like, what does the turtle say? The turtle's all walking around on a leash. It's pretty interesting.
It is interesting. Now, Moses goes up to get the 10 Commandments, and when he comes down, he sees them worshiping a golden calf. The sun is the golden part, and the calf is the bull or Taurus. The Jews were worshiping the sun in Taurus, which is what the Egyptians were doing, whereas they are the Jews or the people of the age of Aries. In fact, here You have the sun in between the horns of the bull. This is Egyptian right here, this hieroglyph. The Jews are the people of Aries. That's why they blow the ram's horn to the sky during the high holidays. Christians are the people of Pisces. That's why they have the Jesus fish here. This is known as the Vesica Pisces. Well, how is it Pisces? Well, here's one fish. And if I do this, this is the second fish right here. These are the two fish. John 21. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish. 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. The mathematical equation of the Vesica Pisces is 265 over 153. So they embedded sacred math into this too. They understood this. This is basically the square root of 3 is what this is. This is very mathematically based right here. But that's why 153 random fish were torn up, because the Vesica Pisces, or the Jesus fish, the two fish right here, the denominator right here, the Vesica Pisces mathematically is 153. Now, this little screenshot that I have right here is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, just in case people are like, oh, you're just quoting a bunch of stuff and you don't really have any sources, because people still want sources, right? They want peer-reviewed sources that everybody agrees on. Whatever. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's the 1st century. They had something known as the Synod of Jamnia, in which, in Palestine, they fixed the canon of the Bible for Judaism, which, following a long period of flux and fluidity, the controversy about certain of its books, Christians came to call the Old Testament. Now, something interesting happened, because this is 100 AD, right? That's when they had the Synod. In 100 AD, the books weren't canonized, which means they were all over the place. Like, people think that the book of Genesis, because it's talking about the creation in the beginning, is the first book of the Bible. It's not. The oldest book, it's the first book of the Bible, yes, but it's not the oldest book. The oldest book is the book of Job, and it's not even close. And look where it's put. It's put randomly deep into the Old Testament. The Synod basically coordinated what book goes where. Now, something interesting happened too, because this was at 100 AD. 30 years prior, the Gospel of Mark, which is the oldest gospel, came out. And during the Synod of Jamnia, they were discussing whether or not to put the Gospel of Mark in the Old Testament, just in case you thought that the Bible wasn't manipulated enough or needed something. The Gospel of Mark very well could have been in the Old Testament. Now, let's talk about some stuff that the Bible makes claims about, which doesn't really make sense. For example, let's talk about if you're to be killed for mixing linens, because people always say that. Should I be, to talk about biblical law, or should I be killed for mixing linens? No, you shouldn't. But the reason they said that you should be killed for mixing linens is because the Jews get their code of punishment and ethics from the Code of Hammurabi, which was way, way more, which was, if you ever read the Code of Hammurabi, you'll see. But I want to explain to you the beauty behind that evil. So you have to look beneath stories to see the information in order to get the information that's useful. It's not reading it on the surface level. If you read it exoterically, you're only going to get exoteric knowledge about it. There was a study done by Dr. Heidi Yellen, which suggested that the fabrics in our wardrobe influence our well-beings in a way we never imagined. Grounded in bioenergetics, the study reveals that everything vibrates at its own unique frequency. We know string theory, right? So obviously that's true. Yellen found that everything, including fabrics, had a unique vibrational signature that could influence our energy. Dr. Yellen conducted her research with the AG Environ machine, a unique instrument that she used to measure the frequencies of fabrics. The study indicates that the frequency of a healthy human body rests at 100. So it's just like your O2 sats, right? 100 is homeostasis. When the frequency decreases below 100, it could imply a disruption in the body's natural balance, potentially leading to various physical and psychological symptoms. This study suggests a relationship between fabric frequencies and human health. High-frequency fabrics like linen, hemp, organic cotton, and wool impart energy, while low-frequency synthetics might drain it. Linen fabric, as ancient as civilization itself, is the standout fabric in Yellen's study with a staggering frequency of 5,000. This is significantly higher than the human body's frequency, which averages around 100. Linen's high frequency suggests that it could impart energy to the wearer, potentially boosting vitality and well-being. Historically, linen has been revered for its healing properties, often used in bandages, linen, sheets, and clothing for its natural resistance to bacterial growth or fungi. It's the same thing with copper and silver, basically, but you don't wear clothes out of that. Now, like linen, wool resonates at a frequency of 5,000. Organic cotton stands out with a frequency of 100. Silk, a fabric known for its luxurious texture, was measured at a frequency of just 10. Rayon, another fabric examined in the study, recorded a frequency of 15. Synthetic fabrics like polyester, acrylic, and nylon with a 0 frequency. Now, here's the part that's important now that I've told you all that. When fabrics are mixed together, even if both are positive, it cancels out to 0. So Leviticus 19, nor shall a garment of mixed linen and wool come upon you. Deuteronomy 22:11, thou shalt not wear a garment of divers sorts as of wool and linen together, or you shall surely be put to death. Again, the punishment comes from the Code of Hammurabi, but if you look deep within this, you'll find that they understood. They understood sacred frequencies back in the day too. We find plenty of chambers that are tuned to 111 or 432, or we see this all the time. Tuning forks that are thousands of years old that tune to that vibrational frequencies. So, yes, they tell you not to mix it. Maybe they shouldn't have told you not that they were going to murder you. But again, it was this is the reason why, because they understood this science.
Yeah, we're finding out that in history they had a lot more knowledge than we claim. They weren't dumb cavemen, 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. They had the potential intellectual capacities we do today, just maybe not all the technology. In some shapes and forms, they must have been way more advanced. Have you seen that some of these like ancient megalithic structures? My friend Hugh Newman goes around. You can't put a piece of paper between them. They're cut in weird trapezoid shapes and all sorts of weird stuff. And they had perfectly drilled holes. How the heck did they move all these blocks? Some people think Edward Leeds Scullin figured out the secrets of the Egyptians using harmonics and levitating, stones using magnetic currents and using their polarity and flipping it and allowing things to be weightless. There's so much that they may have known back
You're talking about
then.
like acoustic levitation.
Right. So Edward Leeds Scullin was an interesting magnetic current guy. He wrote a couple books about this, and he built Coral Castle by himself in Florida. And he moved like 20-ton bricks easily, and he actually moved the entire Coral Castle himself and built it again. And people said they saw him levitating this coral rock that he was building his castle. You can go visit Coral Castle today if you like. It's still there.
I bet. It's true. I believe it. 100%. So in Genesis 32:30, notice the 30 again. What happens at 30? You can become a teacher. Right? That's when it's supposed to happen. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. The eye of Horus, and a sagittal cut of the human brain. This right here, the top part, right here is the corpus callosum of the brain. This eye right here is the pineal gland. They're identical. Now, in many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is the total mourning period, with prayers conducted every 7 days across 7 weeks. These Buddhists believe that rebirth takes place within 49 days after death. The Jews have a 49-day time period called Lag BaOmer. It's the counting of the Omer. 49 years is also called a jubilee. The Catholics have a 49-day time period called the Pentecost. This is after Easter and when you get your communion's confirmation done. So what's so special about 49 that everybody knew? Well, on CT scans and on sonograms, that is the day that the pineal gland becomes visible. And supposedly the soul enters. Now here's an interesting thing. That's 7 weeks, right? That's 7 weeks gestation. A lot of these states out there are capping abortions at 6 weeks. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If the soul's not in the body and something were to happen to the baby, You are not karmically responsible for it. When the soul enters the body on the 7th week, which is why they cap it at 6 weeks, why not 7? Why not 8? Why not 9? Because they know this at the top. They just don't want you to know. At the
some
7th week,
places
when the
are
soul is
pushing
in
for
there.
post-birth abortions because they're sacrificial.
Well, that's Baal worship, yeah.
Yeah.
So hell, the flaming inferno, right? This is where I'm going because I'm saying all this kind of evil stuff, right? This is where my soul is going to go. It's a lake of fire that you're going to burn. But let me ask you a question, Christian. How do we detect pain?
Well, through our nervous system,
In the body.
right?
How do we detect pain?
Through our nervous system, right?
The nervous system. I don't know why it's not letting me highlight. Here we go. The brain, the spinal cord, the nerve endings, and the neurons. So let me ask you a question. Obviously, when you die and your spirit goes, I'm not even talking about where it goes. I'm just talking about as your spirit leaves your physical body behind, and you no longer have a brain or a spinal cord or nerve endings or a neuron. How are you going to detect pain in order to burn in hell for all eternity?
Well, that's just it. First of all, no one knows if hell is actually in the Bible, but if there was such a thing, you wouldn't because you can't burn a spirit. That's an interesting concept. So they use it as a fear tactic to push people towards Christianity. The term hell is never used in the Bible, just like rapture is not in the Bible. It's used as a propaganda piece to scare people into Christianity, because it's not by our good works we should convince people to come over. We need to fear. That was a Babylonian tactic too, right? That's where cannibalism and human sacrifice all came from. So this is another way.
But hell does exist. Hell does exist. It's just on Earth, and it's called winter. That's hell. The idea of a fiery pit where you burn for all eternity is ridiculous when you think about it logically. Hell is actually winter on Earth. Why? It's cold. The vegetation and beautiful flowers and plants are dead. The trees shed their leaves and bear no fruit. It's freezing cold out. People tend to get sick more often. Dangerous animals, if they're not hibernating, are starving and scrounging for food. It's dangerous for humans. Let me show you something. This is why Dante was really kicked out of Italy. Okay? It was for the Divine Comedy that he wrote. The Italian word for winter is inverno. Well, if I just put an F in front of here, inferno, and pervert its meaning, you get the concept of hell. This is the Divine Comedy. Look at Satan in the lowest level of hell. In the book, they talk about him frozen up to his waist. It's a desolate wasteland. This is hell. This is where Satan is.
Antarctica.
Now, in the Divine Comedy, he actually has 3 heads, and he's chewing on Brutus, Cassius, and Judas. But here, he's frozen. And they knew that. And that's why he was kicked out of Italy. So why Virgil was chosen by Dante to lead him through hell? The Sibylline records from Virgil's eclogues, their mystic writings, more specifically the 4th eclogue, which predates Christ, but predicts the birth and rise of a boy who would later become divine and rule the earth. The story of the rise and fall of God's son yet again. In the 5th eclogue, Virgil gives prize to Caesar Augustus and Julius Caesar, which is where we get July and August from. Augustus was the first emperor after Caesar was betrayed. Julius Caesar, which in English translates to July King, which in astrology, the ruling planet of July is Leo. In Leo is the sun. It's another poetic embrace of the rise and eventual slaughter of the sun. It's also important to note that the betrayers of both Jesus and Caesar, which are Judas, Cassius, and Brutus, are the 3 people in the lowest level of hell of Dante's Inferno. Because of these almost mystical, esoteric writings, it makes sense why Dante chose Virgil to be the tour guide through hell. Now, Satan and Lucifer, let's get into that real quick. Satan does not exist. He's not a red devil with a tail and a pitchfork. In fact, in the earliest paintings of him in the 900s, he was actually blue. And who are the Blue Devils, by the way?
Isn't that a college basketball team?
Duke, yeah, the Duke Blue Devils. And they are a Jesuit school, I believe. So go figure. The Duke Blue Devils. That's where they get it from. The Hebrew word for Satan is Hashatan, which literally translates to adversary. In proper context, 2 competing sports teams are Satans to one another. Lucifer, he's known as the light bringer. In Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light." How can there be light without the light bearer? Lucifer is immediately mentioned in the Bible, if not by name, but by action and purpose. Lucifer is also known as the morning star, which Jesus calls himself too in John 22:16. The morning star is also known as the planet Venus. Why? Because if you go outside in the morning as the sun is starting to creep up into the sky and start to put that little aura of light, there's a bright light above the sun. And every day that's Lucifer, that's Venus. Every day Venus announces the arrival of God's son. Now Lucifer is also known to have a pentagram. That's his symbol. And if you continue with Lucifer as Venus, you follow Earth and Venus's orbit around the sun in a year's time. They almost connect at 5 points. Look at this. This is when you connect the 5 points. Earth, Venus at their closest to each other. You get the pentagram.
Huh.
This is the rudimentary. Yeah?
No, it's interesting. I just, how the astrology.
This is the rudimentary
fits in.
phallic symbol. This is the rudimentary phallic symbol, the original penis, so to speak. It is known as the blade. So this would basically be the head of the penis. This is just a very caveman-esque, non-pretty design for it. But this opening right here is the womb, the chalice. You put them together, it's the Star of David, or as the Christians will call it, the Star of Remthon.
Or the Seal of
It's the
Solomon.
joining of the two. It's a hermaphrodite. That's what they're showing. Yeah, it's a hermaphrodite. That's what they're showing you. Now, there's more sex magic in the Bible than you think. This is an overhead view, as built as the Bible tells you, of Solomon's Temple, which is the basis of all masonry. Incidentally,
Right, the
I'm not a
lodges are
mason.
laid out like
I
this,
left
right?
them because I lectured some of this stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I laid out my research and my work to them, and they told me it was too revealing of the signs. Was one of the things they told me. So I was like, if you guys are gatekeepers, I'm fucking out. So that's what I basically did. I left. So I speak out against them right now. So I joined them because I wanted to share esoteric information, meet esoteric type people. I wasn't always a truther. You know, I didn't know any better. I was looking for things that made sense, and I was continuing Jordan Maxwell and Santos Minocci's work. So I was trying to share it with people, and they're too exoteric. So it's Judaism, but check this out right here. This is Jachin and Boaz.
The World Trade Centers.
This is an overhead view of the testicle. Right. This is an overhead view. The whole thing is an overhead view. This is the overhead view of the testicles. The porch is the base of the penis. The holy place is the shaft. The Holy of Holies is the head of the penis. This is the opening, the little hole in the penis. The ark is there, the DNA, the Torah. Well, within the hole of the penis is where the DNA is. These store chambers right here is where the eggs come out of, the ovaries. This is a penis entering a vagina. This is sex magic. This is what masonry is based off of. Everything in masonry is build yourself up like Solomon builds his temple. That's what it is. But this is really just a penis entering a vagina. Do you see that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And King Solomon was involved in ritualistic sex magic. They say he was the wisest man, but he also was one of the most evil men at one of the points in his life. And it's, again, that's why the Catholics, their priests, or when they're learning, they go to a seminary. It's kind of also esoteric, and obviously they have a lot of the sex magic. Christos, which is oil, right? When you get anointed, any one of us can be Christos, but if you get anointed, right, that is symbolic of the reproductive growth, rain on the ground to bring forth life and growth, and it's again very sexual.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about Samson and Delilah, guys, because I'm going to show you the exoteric meaning and then the esoteric meaning. Samson and Delilah. Samson was a really strong dude with long hair. what ends up happening? He gets his hair cut, he loses his powers, he's betrayed by Delilah, he goes blind. Right? Now, there's plenty of Christians and Jews that take meaning out of that. But if you understand Hebrew, okay? Shamesh, Mem, Shamesh, Vav, Nun. Shimshon is the word for it. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me show you something else real quick. Hold on. You guys see these letters up here, these dots up here, and these dots down here?
Yeah.
That's how Jews show vowels. That's vowels. So they change the way that you say things. So this is Shimshon. Shimshon means little son. So Samson means little son. Now Delilah, the root word of Delilah is Lila. And Lila means night in Hebrew. So you have the little son and the night. Now, what did I tell you happens? She betrays him. He goes blind. The son goes blind. And he loses his sight. He loses his power. This is a story of the sun being chased into the underworld by the night. This is another solar story. In fact, the sun at night, or Set from the ancient Egyptians, this is why we have a sunset, because Set is true of the sun being chased into the underground by the night. Jonah in the body of a whale. In Hebrew, the words are dagadol, which translate to great giant fish. He's in it for 3 days. He's dead for 3 days. It's the 3 days again, walking sideways like the crab. Daniel in the lion's den. It's a story revolving around 2 signs in astrology. Daniel, the man, Aquarius, and the lions, which are Leo, the lion. In the zodiac, they're opposing signs. Abraham and Sarah. Abraham's name was Abram before he was made Abraham. Abram is a combination of 2 words. Abba, which is father in Hebrew, and Ram, which means ram, father of the people of Aries, the Jews. Now, Abram gets his name because it goes back to Brahma, and Sarai goes back to Saraswati or Saraiswati. So it's influence from the outside. So I'm about halfway done with this presentation, but I think we're going to have to split this into 2 parts.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're running out of time here. We have 4 minutes left. And so if this is a good place to stop, we'll have to have you back and to really dive into this. And I think that this, isn't Sarah, what was that, Saraswati? Wasn't that like a river someplace? I can't remember if it was in the Hindu religion or Tibetan area. I'd have to look into it. But there's something to deal with water and Sarah and water. And you're right, Abraham. Would Sarah then be Aquarius if it's based off of a river? And then the ram, would that be like considered some type of zodiac meaning possibly behind the story? I'm not sure.
We'd have to, let's flesh that idea out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We'll have to find out more about this. But that being said, Micah, thank you for joining us. And tell our listeners where they can hear more about this. Like, where is your, your anthology of videos? Where can people find out more? Because the learning doesn't stop here. I actually watch your videos from time to time. You know, before I go to sleep, a lot of times I turn on videos of Maxwell or Donahue and try to learn something new, or other individuals who have new ideas. Santos Bonacci, I've had on the show. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I know he was interested in the firmament and the flat earth ideology for a while. Don't know if that's still relevant, but I think it's all interesting. But where can our listeners find out more about you, Micah?
My website is debunkmywork.com, or you can look up Micah Dank on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
All right, very cool. Here it is. We'll put it on the screen for everyone. Wanted to share some comments with you real quick. Topographia says, great stuff, gents. Thank you very much for this broadcast. Katie says, thank you, Micah. Great presentation. That is also what's in there. We also have somebody talking about a new Atlantis. Simon Phoenix says something about a new Atlantis. stuff about John Dee. He has stuff about Francis Bacon talking about here. This is my story. This is Micah's volume's coming in low. Obviously, we fixed that. I saw that for a second there. We got Huck Finn. It says, I just got into the Mazzaroth, and weirdly, dispensationalism came out with more popularity around the same time. Don't know really what dispensationalism is. I'm not aware, and I have to look that word up. I love new words, by the way. Again, we got other people talking about the Grand Rising and a whole bunch more. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Rundown Live. Micah Dank, thank you for joining us. We are just out of time. For those that want to know how to support you and buy your books, you got books to buy as well that can be found on your website called debunkmywork.com, and Debunk My Work is where you find it. And I want our listeners to also know, if you're tuning in, I will be on Coast to Coast AM at midnight Central Standard Time this Sunday. So if you guys want to hear me talk about giant human skeletons.
Congrats on making
excited.
that happen so
Micah,
damn fast.
You made it happen, brother. You're the one who introduced me to someone.
No, I introduced you. I said you have to make it happen. I said you have to knock it out of the park, and you did. Good job.
All right, thank you, brother, and we'll talk soon. That being said, you guys, we'll see you guys tomorrow on the Rundown Live. We'll have more guests, and on Thursday, Ryan Gable from The Secret Teachings will be joining us, and a whole bunch more all this week. You guys find out on therundownlive.com, show tips at therundownlive.com. Find us, like us on any platform, smash the like button, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Thanks again to Micah for joining us. You guys are listening to the Rundown Live on groundzeroplus.com. Check out fringeit.co. Be part of the social media revolution and get on fringeit.co. It's $1 a month, but you get to communicate with people like me and hang out and check all the latest news, not censored. Fringeit.com. If you want to support this broadcast, listen, we are 100% listener funded. If we don't ask, people don't donate. Buy me a coffee. There's is on the screen. Send me a Venmo. We're on paypal.com. You can find that on paypal.me/The Rundown Live. You can message me, x.com/Kriston T. Harris, and a whole bunch more. Thank you guys for tuning in to this enlightening episode. What great information. And thank you again to Micah Dank for joining us. You guys have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Is that who I think it is?
Yep, sure is. Did you hear he ditched the man cave and brought back the study?
That's so sexy. I love it when a man